Richard Barrett is the former director of global counterterrorism operations for the British intelligence service, and he's also the former UN coordinator for the team that monitors al-Qaeda and the Taliban. And he joins me live now from Islamabad in Pakistan. Richard Barrett, thank you very much for joining me. You heard just now what Tom Gelton has been saying, national security correspondent in the United States, that in general, a lot of this spying in Europe on citizens, we're not talking about world leaders now, has been by those intelligence services themselves. What can you tell me about the methodology of surveillance?
Well, I can say that some threats are transnational and affect many more than one country. And I think it's absolutely natural that those countries that those threats do affect join forces in trying to get some analysis of what they are, what they mean, and how imminent they might be. So I don't think it's at all surprising that the United States, Spain, and France, in this case, might have seen particular threats as common threats and joined forces to look at them.
Mm-hmm. And what can you tell us about the whole issue of foreign leaders being tapped and being bugged? Not just foes, but friends alike. This is, as you know, exploded into a big public controversy since the revelations about Angela Merkel. Is that sort of business as usual? Is that what leaders expect?
Well, I think the various continuums at work here, you know, all countries have friends, they have allies, they have rivals, they have enemies. And it depends where your target country appears on that continuum, I think, as to how you might approach gathering information about it. There's absolutely no doubt that one of the roles of the State Department, for example, will be to report on what they understand to be the leadership intentions in Germany. Germany is obviously a very close friend of the United States. So there's another continuum at work there, from purely overt collection of information through to covert. And the third continuum, I think, which plays into this is the continuum between risk and dividend. So clearly, if you want to know the leadership intentions of your good friend Germany, you will rely first and foremost on overt means. And, you know, I can't say what the American policy would be beyond that, but you can see what I'm trying to say. There are these various gradations when you look at any particular area of interest for any government or foreign ministry.
Mm-hmm. Now, tell me from your experience, what is the percentage, if you like, of intelligence gathering on anti-terrorism kind of intelligence gathering and spying, and other kind of, whether it's industrial espionage or commercial or any kind of other kind of rivalrous information that leaders want to get?
Yes, well, I think all countries, all governments set targets for their intelligence services of information that they want to collect. And after 9/11, of course, that changed dramatically, so that terrorism, which might have typically attracted, say, less than 10% of resources, suddenly attracted 60% or more of resources. And that, I think, was true in very many countries. And that required a huge amount of ditching of other intelligence targets to focus on this new transnational threat. And although that may have died down a little bit, I still think that the threats from terrorism, from organized crime generally, now cybercrime, for example, drugs and so on, I think these are very major targets for most of the major intelligence services.
So let me play you a little bit of what Prime Minister David Cameron has said about this current uproar.
I can see what has been done here, where information has been published about the work of our security and intelligence services, which, quite frankly, will make this country less safe.
So that is what the British are saying. It's certainly what the Americans are saying. Is there any evidence that you've been able to see or hear about that supports that allegation?
Well, I have heard, yes, that the ability to track terrorist conversations and communications has degraded a little bit since those revelations came about. Whether that's because they've switched techniques or whether it's because they've been more careful and more quiet, I'm not sure. I don't have access to that sort of information. But clearly, anything that reveals sources and methods that is heard by a target will change a target's behavior. And this will be true with terrorists as with any other target that the intelligence services may have. So obviously, intelligence services prefer to deal in secrecy, do their work in secret, and not be uncovered. So when there is any exposure of their sources and methods, there'll be a consequence for them.
And I ask you this because, you know, Glenn Greenwald and Edward Snowden and the others have said, listen, common sense shows that all these terrorists know that they're routinely being monitored, listened to. They just know it. And so the fact that we have revealed that is nothing new. What's new is the number of ordinary citizens around the world who are being monitored. What can you tell me about, how do you react to what Glenn Greenwald says about what the terrorists know?
Yeah, well, you know, we all use the internet, all right? We all use email, and we all know that any email we send can probably be read quite easily by somebody else, should they be determined to read it. But it doesn't stop us having that exchange of intimacy over email, which email encourages. You sort of tend to think it's a sort of one-to-one private communication. And I think with terrorists it's the same. Obviously, they're much more careful than the average person, but they will use communication methods. They'll get careless occasionally. They'll make slip-ups. They'll reveal telephone numbers and things like that until they're reminded, look, this is dangerous. This is affecting us directly. We better be more careful. And then they close up again.
Richard Barrett, thank you so much indeed for joining me from Islamabad.